Welcome to the Media Navigators podcast, brought to you by the World Media Group. And my name is Belinda Barker and I'm the Chief Executive. Today we're going to be talking about changing careers. The media and advertising industries have always been incredibly dynamic, but change has never been so rapid. Many of us may be thinking about how we want to change our careers. So today we're going to be talking to one of the titans of our industry, who has not only changed career paths very successfully, but been an entrepreneur throughout his career. Today, our co-host is Alex Delamain, who's the global client partner for The Economist and president of the World Media Group.
Thank you very much, Belinda, and good morning. I feel very honoured to be here today to introduce our next guest, who is very much the titan of our industry, who's going to bring to life the journey that he's been on through his career and what made him make the decision to go alone. So I have great pleasure in introducing Iain Jacob, many of you whom will know from his CEO role at Starcom and latterly Publicis Media. So good morning, Iain, and welcome.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Belinda. I hope you're both well. Thank you for inviting me along to the conversation. It's a great privilege to be here.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for making the time, because I can see from everything that you're doing at the moment, you're extraordinarily busy. You're probably busier now than you were when you were in a more corporate role. How are you finding it juggling working from home during COVID?
Well, I certainly, when I changed my role to a more plural approach, I did feel I might have a bit more flexibility on my time, which didn't turn out quite to be that way. So I'm busy, yeah, but I'm loving it. So yeah, thank you. It's going well. Fabulous.
Now, I know many people actually who have sort of gone it alone or decided to take the plural route. And in my experience of my conversations with them is they talk and think about doing it a lot. Because it seems such a bold move. But then when they do it, they wish they'd done it years before. So my question to you would be, what was the tipping point to decide that this was the time to do it? And did you have that same feeling that, gosh, I wish I'd done it earlier?
No, I really relate to what other people have told you, because I do absolutely recognise that. I'm not sure there was ever a tipping point. I really loved working for Publicis. I had great fun, and particularly towards the last 2 years of working at Publicis, where we were putting together and I was leading the Publicis Media integration, which is basically bringing together two really big businesses in Zenith Optimedia and Starcom MediaVest and creating a new company. And that was great fun. The downside to having done that is once you've done that, you kind of go, well, where do I go next? And in a funny sort of way, I felt I'd done everything I could do for the group. I couldn't quite see what the next piece was that was going to be as exciting as the last piece. And that's really what set me thinking about the whole piece. And I really felt that I was ready for a new challenge having done that. I felt equipped for a new challenge, and I got myself mentally, as you say, into the space where I felt positive energy around going into creating some change around myself.
And were you having conversations with other people that were stimulating that idea? Because I presume you must have had thoughts running in parallel to the latter sort of month at Publicis, having done creating this amazing new offering. You must have at some point started to think somewhere else about what you might do. And who helped you in creating those ideas and those thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you said earlier, Alex, you said, what's it like going it alone, I think was the phrase you used. And I've never felt that I'm been going it alone because of those conversations. Because I think going it alone sounds terribly lonely. Sounds slightly depressing, in fact. And I never felt that at all. Really, I had conversations with so many people. And although this sounds a little bit like a cliche, everybody was really generous with their time. They were genuinely generous with their time because I think everybody's thinking, especially these days, about where to next. Where's my career? Where's my life going? how do I get the work-life balance? I think everybody has got those thoughts at the very height of their thinking. So I spoke to a lot of people, some of it a little bit more formal than others. I actually ended up, I don't think I've told many people this, I ended up employing my own coach. I didn't do it via the company. I personally paid for a coach, and she was really helpful. She didn't understand the media world, and that was a good thing. So she made me think properly, realistically, outside of the bubble. So that was enormously helpful. And then I spoke to a range of entrepreneurs, people that have done a similar thing. And the more I spoke, the more inspired I got, actually, the more I could see that it was a possibility.
So it sounds like you did, in fact, have a quite a clear vision of what you wanted to do post-Publicis. But has that vision changed at all? And what have you liked most and least about being out in the world, as it were?
Do you know what, Belinda? I never felt, in fact, I never felt I've had a clear vision, really, in the way you describe it. I knew that I wanted to change and change direction. And I knew the things that I did know was that I wanted to be true to myself, that I wanted to be learning, and I wanted to be enjoying life. I knew what I didn't want. I didn't want to be going on a repeat cycle. It's very easy when you have been in a corporate role for a while just to rinse and repeat every year, set the budgets, do the stuff you have to do, win some business. And that's all good, but after a while it can become repetitive. So I knew I didn't want to do that. So it was less about me knowing, having the vision. It was more about me opening up the possibilities, really, and saying I was willing to and wanted to be open-minded about what could happen. I knew that I wanted to do a multiple number of things. I guess that's about as clear as the vision got. You know, when I deal with a lot of early stage and startup companies, and often when you're an entrepreneur, you obviously go in with a vision as to what you want to achieve, but often you have to be flexible and ready to change that. And actually, what I look for in a company, indeed, is the ability of the management to be flexible, not to be stuck rigidly to one vision. So I didn't really have that vision. What I enjoyed the most was really the conversations. And I think when you leave the corporate world, it does give you some freedom to be possibly a bit more, I don't mean this in the wrong way, but possibly to be a bit more authentic or a bit more open in the way you're having conversations with people, because you're not having to peddle one point of view about the world. So you have that freedom, and I really enjoy those conversations because of that freedom. And people were very honest with me as well, both for good and for bad.
So did it happen organically, finding the new business, or did that come from the conversations you've been previously happening?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I felt it was serendipity. I kind of bumped into opportunities that came up. Obviously there are things you can control and things you can't control. What you can't control is when an opportunity is going to emerge. It is either going to emerge or it's not going to emerge. What you can control is being open to talking to people and your approach to potential opportunities. And so it felt very serendipitous. It felt like opportunities were just popping up. And that surprised me a little bit, because when you do change direction, you naturally would be inhuman not to have fears. Oh, goodness me, what happens if the phone never rings, or what? And they're legitimate concerns. But in reality, more opportunities became apparent over time. Not all of them right. Not all of them was I capable of doing, honestly. I had some conversations where I felt, I'm not sure I could do that or want to do that. But it felt serendipitous. So if I had a plan, I mean, my main plan was actually how I was going to network. That was where my plan sat, really. Who did I want to speak to? How could I open up those conversations? And so on and so forth. So that was really the basis of my direction.
That's interesting what you're saying about the companies that you choose to work with. And there's an element of, I'm not going to work with them because I don't think I'm the right fit or I don't have the right skill set. But, being an entrepreneur and being your own boss, you're not under the guise of a corporation. So you do have the choice that you didn't have before to work with people in whatever way you choose. And you've been very lucky that serendipity has played its part and these amazing opportunities have presented themselves, because you're working with 9 different businesses at the moment. It's phenomenal. But, one, is it hard to say no if there is a company that maybe really needs your help and you could help them? You've got all the right skill set, but it's just not a sort of company you want to work with, would be one question. And 2, what does the future look like to make sure that pipeline of opportunity continues? Are you hoping that this, the right thing will appear at the right time, or do you have a plan about the direction you want to specifically go in and build certain skill sets and expertise in a certain area as you are doing currently?
Well, the one thing I did say, Alex, when I set out was that I was going to stick to my domain of expertise. You do get people that go down a non-exec director type route who say, well, I can be a non-exec director of any type of company because I'm going to bring my skill sets that are just commercial skill sets maybe, or people skill sets, to that organisation, and they can be applied whatever that organisation does. That wasn't the approach I took. I wanted to operate in my domain, which is, digital data, media content, and all of that sort of stuff, because I love it. I just find media and everything associated with it endlessly fascinating. I never get bored in that space. The second thing is, I think it's actually as much about companies choosing me or you, or the person, as opposed to the person just choosing the company. Because if there's anything that your involvement really puts a focus on, is because you're putting in a relatively smaller amount of time compared to a full-time corporate role, every minute kind of counts, which is a good discipline, and it's quite a tough discipline, because you've got to know how you're going to add value to that company, and then you have to understand how that the people running that business are going to add value to you, because then it's going to be a successful relationship. And if either of those things feels wrong, then I would tend to shy away from it. I have approached organisations, or been approached by organisations, and felt I really wanted to do it, and been rejected. And of course, that happens to all of us all the time, doesn't it? And that's just the way of the world. But I think getting the match is really important. The match of, do you believe in the management of the company? Do you believe in what they're doing? And can you add value? I mean, yes or no? And if you can't be clear on that, then you shouldn't really be choosing to work with them. And
have you made any mistakes that you're willing to admit
Never.
to?
Oh my goodness! How long is this? How long is this podcast? Have I made any mistakes? All the time. One of the things I would have done slightly differently, when I was working with publicists, I was so focused on publicists, which of course you'd hope, I guess, but I was so in the bubble, is the honest truth, that I viewed everything through the publicist bubble lens. When publicists said it, it must be right. And of course, it's only a point of view, and it might not necessarily be the only point of view in the marketplace. And I wish I had taken a little bit more time maybe to diversify my point of view by maybe having a non-exec or an advisory role while working in the corporation. And what I find is that most enlightened management and leaders recognise that that's also valuable to them. So, if I'm running a board and somebody said to me, Iain, I want to do this third-party thing, I want to be an advisor, say, for a startup company, I would absolutely endorse that. because it makes the person a better person. Because they're broadening out their view on the world. Because I don't think living in a publicist bubble is very helpful to publicists, to be fair, and it's certainly not helpful to the individual. So I would have maybe stepped into that world a bit more gently than the way I did. And that was a big learning. And I'd really recommend everybody to think about, what are their side hacks, if you will, what are their side hustles that they're doing, and how can they build that? Because I think it's valuable on so many levels.
So on the other side of it, we've been talking about how to, as an individual, to change your role, but obviously also you are looking at businesses as a potential investor. So if we've got any kind of budding entrepreneurs out there listening to this, have you got any top tips for them how they should be pitching for investment?
Well, that's a big area, Belinda. And I think the decision to start up a business is obviously an enormous decision, and it's very rarely kind of a perfect decision. And what I've noticed, at least, is the people that are the most successful in that world are those people that are quite robust. I mean, they're relentless, they're energetic, they're hard driving typically, but they're quite robust, so they can take setbacks really well. And you know what? In media, generally, I find that people are pretty good at that. They're optimistic, generally, I would say. You can be introvert or extrovert and work in media very well, I think. But they're positive people, and that's part of why I think it's such an enjoyable industry to be in. And they're quite robust people often. But you need to be ready to say, can I take rejection? Because there's going to be plenty of it. I mean, when I first co-founded Moat Communications years ago, which was a kind of strategic media hotshot, I guess you describe it. How we wrote the story of success after was not really quite how it happened. So we wrote the story of success afterwards, which was all about we were strategic, creative, bringing interesting stuff to a boring world of media buying. And that's kind of how we wrote it, which was obviously a competitive point of view rather than reality, because media buying wasn't boring and we weren't particularly special. But the reason why we actually set up Moat Communications was because we were the media department of BBH and we were going out of business. I mean, that's what happened. We were going out of business because business kept pitching, people kept going to media buying specialists, media planning and buying specialists, and we were losing out. So the reality of the story was we took some decisions to be entrepreneurial in a tough environment. And the truth is different often from the narrative that you hear after the event. And I think once you understand that, it's very reassuring, for an entrepreneur. You haven't been knocked back because somebody doesn't like you or because you're no good, or you've been knocked back because that opportunity didn't happen to get through to fruition, and you just need to try again and maybe adjust your positioning and try again.
Well, finally, I have one question, because I think this is going to be pertinent to everybody. Obviously, this industry has been impacted quite dramatically by COVID. There's been a lot of changes forced upon us, some of which is good because it's created innovation. But I think we all agree that the next 6 months there's a huge amount of uncertainty and probably challenges lying ahead. What advice would you give somebody who's just starting out in their career in media at the moment? Working from home remotely comes with its challenges when you're not able to sort of meet with your cohort at work, etc. So with your long experience of working on agency sides, what advice would you give somebody just starting out now?
Gosh, it's tough. So my son is 20, so he's pretty much in the position you describe, Alex. And, there's never been a time, to my mind, where people haven't said the next 6 months in media is going to be really challenging. Can you remember the time? It's the kind of nature of the beast, isn't it?
So true.
It's all changed. Well, yes. And if you like that, then get stuck in. I have my biggest, not biggest concern, maybe the wrong word, but I do feel that the cultural connection of, the younger end of the workforce is so difficult at the moment. I read stuff about people saying that working from home is great because of this, and this. And it's often said by the people that kind of have a garden, have a family, have a pet dog. Well, there are a lot of people that don't have any of that stuff. And they're coming out, they're working through the earlier stages of their career. Maybe not, maybe they're. But I think that cultural connection is such an important point. So I think if I was running a company, I'd be really conscious of that. And I know most bosses are, but figuring out how I'm going to keep that cultural connection for that younger end of the workforce, because I think that's crucial. But I think certainty is not in anybody's gift. I mean, things are always changing, and I think media is the most exciting because of that change. It's also tough because of that, really tough because of that. But if I were starting out, I'd encourage people to get stuck in, to create a network, to start to talk to multiple people, to be open-minded. And when I talk to people coming into the business, I feel there's a great energy. I think the opportunities are so much broader than just working for one of the big holding companies. There's a massive opportunity out there from different companies, and you just got to go in again open-minded to develop different conversations. So I would encourage people to come in, because I think it's no less or more risky than anything else in life, to be honest with you.
I think that your point about networking is really important. It's harder to do from home, but relationships and the people in the industry are so important, and that's played out perfectly in enabling you to be the entrepreneur you are today, because your connections and your relationships that are coming to fruition in a different way outside of your corporate life. So the sooner you start networking, the better.
No, absolutely. And by the way, I think I work with entrepreneurs rather than being an entrepreneur. I mean, I've set up my own company in the past, but I've got nothing but admiration for somebody who decides to set up on their own, because I know what it's like. And what I love is trying to give those businesses support. And Belinda mentioned earlier, what advice would you give to a startup? I mean, that's where startups often want to know the answer to. How do I raise money? How do I talk to a VC fund? How do I talk to an angel investor? And those are the sort of areas where younger businesses that are starting out do need help. But it's them taking the risk. God bless them. And
we wish them all the very best of luck.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much, Iain. Fascinating conversation and very inspiring. And we really appreciate your transparency.
Well, thank you both. It's a pleasure. Great pleasure to talk, and as you said, good luck to anybody who's doing this. And you make your own luck in a little bit of a way. So get going.
Brilliant. Thanks, Iain.
Thank you. Bye now.